Getting asked to help your crush practice his confession to another girl is probably somewhere in the top 10 worst things that can happen in high school. I just never expected it to happen to me, Sarah Mitchell, on an otherwise perfectly normal Tuesday in October. Please. Ryan Cooper's green eyes were doing that thing where they caught the sunlight streaming through the library windows, making them look like sea glass. You're the only one I trust with this. I clutched my copy of Romeo and Juliet closer to my chest, as if Shakespeare could somehow protect my heart from what was happening. Ryan and I had been study partners in AP English for the past 2 months, bonding over our shared love of classic literature and terrible puns. Which was apparently enough for him to think I'd be the perfect person to help him confess his feelings to someone else. I don't know, Ryan, I managed, proud that my voice stayed steady. Wouldn't Jessica be better at this? She's in drama club. That's exactly why I can't ask her. She'd turn it into this huge production. He slid into the chair next to me, close enough that I could smell his familiar mix of coffee and mint. I want it to be genuine, you know. Real. Real. Right. Because helping your crush practice telling another girl he loves her is totally real and not at all like stabbing yourself in the heart repeatedly. Come on, Sarah. He nudged my shoulder playfully. You're my best friend. And you know me better than anyone. There it was. The best friend card. The death knell of any secret crush. Fine, I heard myself say, because apparently, I was a masochist. But I have conditions. His face lit up. Anything. First, we do this somewhere private. I am not watching you practice romantic declarations in the middle of the library. Deal. My house after school. Parents are at some charity thing all week. I nodded, trying to ignore how my stomach flipped at the thought of being alone at his house. Second, you have to tell me who it's for. I need to know what kind of girl I'm pretending to be. Something flickered across his face, nervousness. Actually, would it be okay if we just practice the words first? Without context. You want me to help you practice a confession without knowing who it's for? Trust me. He gave me that half smile that had first made my heart skip beats in freshman year when he'd borrowed a pencil in biology. And that was my third problem. I did trust him. Probably more than I should. Okay, I sighed. But my final condition is that you have to buy me coffee every day until we get this right. Done. He grinned, pulling out his phone. Let me see, is today too soon? Yes, absolutely too soon. I needed at least a few hours to prepare my heart for this particular form of torture. Don't you have baseball practice? Cancelled. Coach has the flu. He looked up hopefully. So. Fine. But I need to stop at my locker first. As we left the library, my best friend Mia caught my eye from her usual study spot. Her expression clearly said, "What are you doing?" I gave her my best, "I'll explain later," look, which she answered with an eye roll that definitely meant, "You're an idiot." She wasn't wrong. At my locker, I tried to give myself a silent pep talk while pretending to look for a textbook I didn't need. I could do this. I could help Ryan practice his confession without revealing that I'd been drafting my own confession to him in my journal for months. Ready? Ryan appeared beside me, making me jump. He'd changed into a soft gray sweater that made his eyes look even greener. Unfair. Almost. I pulled out my phone and texted Mia. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, I've either died of embarrassment or committed a crime of passion. Either way, destroy my journal. Her reply was instant, the one where you wrote Mrs. Sarah Cooper 50 times. On it. I hate you, I texted back. No, you love me because I'll help you hide the body when this inevitably blows up in your face. Putting my phone away, I turned to find Ryan watching me with an odd expression. What? Nothing. He shook his head, smiling. Just, thanks for doing this. I know it's a weird request. Weird is kind of our thing, I reminded him. Remember when you made me help you recreate that scene from Pride and Prejudice for your sister's birthday video? Hey, that turned out great. Even if you did keep laughing every time I tried to say ardently. Because you kept pronouncing it ardently like it rhymed with urgently. We were both laughing as we walked to his car, and for a moment, it felt normal. Just Ryan and Sarah, the English nerds who could quote Jane Austen at each other and debate the merits of Oxford commas. Then I saw the notebook in his back pocket, the one he'd been scribbling in all week during class, and reality crashed back. This wasn't some literary reenactment or inside joke. This was Ryan, the boy I'd been in love with since freshman year, asking me to help him confess his feelings to someone else. As I got into his car, Mia's text flashed through my mind again: this will inevitably blow up in your face. Looking at Ryan's profile as he drove, humming along to some indie song on the radio, I couldn't help but think she was right. But then again, I'd always been a sucker for tragic romance. Okay, Ryan said, pacing his living room while I sat cross-legged on his familiar gray couch. How should we do this? I tried to channel my inner English tutor, pretending this was just another Shakespeare analysis session. Well, what have you written so far? He pulled out the notebook I'd seen earlier, and my heart did a weird flip. He'd been writing in this all week, sneaking glances at it between classes. Now I'd finally know what was inside. Promise not to laugh. His usual confidence wavered. Ryan, I've seen you cry over Beth's death in Little Women. 3 times. Your secrets are safe with me. He smiled, then opened the notebook to a dog-eared page. Right. So, should I just read it? Maybe try it without reading first. More natural that way. He nodded, took a deep breath, and looked directly at me. I've been trying to find the right words to tell you this for a long time. Oh God. Even knowing this wasn't really for me, my heart started racing. You're different from anyone I've ever known. The way you see the world, the way you can find beauty in the smallest things. Was he getting closer, or was I imagining it? Like how you always notice when the leaves start changing color, or how you can quote entire passages from your favorite books. Wait. Something about those details felt specific. And the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, especially during our study sessions. Hold up. I stood up abruptly, nearly colliding with him. These are pretty detailed observations for a generic practice run. Ryan's ears turned pink. I'm just getting into character. Right. I swallowed hard. Maybe we should try something less personal. Something more general. Like what? Like. I really admire you, or you're special to me. Basic stuff. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous habit I documented extensively in my journal. That feels too generic. I want it to be meaningful. Then maybe you should tell me who it's for, I challenged. So I can help properly. Something flashed in his eyes, panic. I can't. Not yet. Why not? Because his phone buzzed, interrupting whatever he was about to say. He checked it and groaned. It's Coach. Emergency team meeting in 20 minutes. Rain check. Part of me was relieved for the interruption. Another part wanted to scream in frustration. Same time tomorrow, he asked, already grabbing his baseball jacket. Actually, I have plans tomorrow. A lie. But Thursday works. As he drove me home, I tried to process what had just happened. Those details in his confession, they were so specific, so familiar. But they couldn't be about. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Well. Are you dead or in jail? Neither. Yet. But I need ice cream. Emergency best friend meeting. 10 minutes later, I was sprawled on Mia's bed, surrounded by empty Ben Jerry's containers, recounting every excruciating detail. Let me get this straight, she said, waving her spoon for emphasis. He described someone who notices autumn leaves, quotes books, and scrunches their nose while studying. Yep. And you don't think that sounds like anyone we know? I threw a pillow at her. Don't. Sarah. No. Don't give me hope. He probably just used me as inspiration because I was there. Or maybe he's been watching someone else who does all those things. Like Jessica. She's always reading poetry in the courtyard. Mia rolled her eyes so hard I worried they might get stuck. Jessica is allergic to everything outdoors and only reads scripts. Try again. Emma from chemistry. Hasn't read a book since 6th grade. Katie from Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. Mia sat up straight. Are you really going to list every girl in school except yourself? I'm being realistic, I mumbled into a pillow. Ryan sees me as his best friend. His study buddy. The girl who helps him practice confessing to other girls. Or maybe he's trying to tell you something, and you're too scared to see it. Before I could argue, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Sorry about running out. Make it up to you tomorrow. I thought you had plans tomorrow, Mia said, reading over my shoulder. I do now. I typed back, can't. Busy. His reply was instant, please. I'll bring coffee. And those chocolate croissants you love from Mason's Bakery. Mia snatched my phone. He knows your coffee order and your favorite bakery. He knows lots of things about me. We're friends. Friends don't memorize each other's favorite baked goods. Or write suspiciously specific confessions that match exactly with. Another text from Ryan interrupted her. Found something in my notebook I want to show you. Important. My heart skipped. The notebook. What else was in there? Go tomorrow, Mia urged. If only so I don't have to watch you pine for another 3 years. I'm not pining, I protested, even as I typed back, fine. But I expect 2 chocolate croissants. His response was a simple heart emoji, which definitely didn't make my own heart do somersaults. Not pining at all, Mia smirked. Just agreeing to more torture practice because he offered pastries. Shut up. Never. Now, what are you wearing tomorrow? As Mia raided her closet for the perfect confession practice outfit, I couldn't help but wonder, what was in that notebook that Ryan wanted to show me? And why did he look almost relieved when Coach's message interrupted us? Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. And I was absolutely terrified of what it might bring. The next day, I arrived at our usual library table wearing Mia's perfect sweater soft blue, supposedly brings out my eyes and trying not to look like I'd spent half the night overthinking everything. Ryan was already there, 2 Mason's coffee cups and a bakery bag on the table. He was writing in that notebook again, so focused he didn't notice me approach. Must be some confession, I said, making him jump and slam the notebook shut. Sarah. I didn't, you look nice. He blinked a few times, then pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. Vanilla latte, extra hot, with cinnamon on top. I took a sip. Perfect, as always. And 2 chocolate croissants, as promised. He slid the bag over, then glanced around the nearly empty library. Actually, want to go somewhere else? What I want to show you. I'd rather not do it here. My heart started racing. Sure. Where? Remember that spot behind the auditorium? With the old oak tree. How could I forget? It was where we first really talked, back in freshman year, when we both needed an escape from the homecoming dance. We'd spent hours discussing books and dreams and everything in between. It was also the moment I realized I was falling for him. Lead the way. The October air was crisp, leaves crunching under our feet as we walked. Ryan was unusually quiet, clutching his notebook like it might try to escape. So, I said, trying to sound casual, "What's so important that we had to leave the library?" He sat under the oak tree, patting the spot next to him. "Remember last month when Mrs. Hayes had us write those creative writing pieces? The ones about moments that changed us? Yeah, I wrote about the time my dad taught me to ride a bike. Well, I wrote something different." He opened the notebook, but didn't show it to me yet. "And I've been expanding on it. Adding to it. Trying to get it right. For the confession. Kind of." He took a deep breath. "Can I read it to you? The whole thing, no interruptions?" I nodded, heart thundering. "The moment that changed me," he began reading, "wasn't a single instant. It was a collection of small things. It was watching someone scrunch their nose while reading Pride and Prejudice for the 100th time. It was hearing them laugh at my terrible literary puns. It was realizing that every time something good or bad happened, they were the first person I wanted to tell." My breath caught. This sounded an awful lot like. It was sitting under an oak tree during a dance, talking about everything and nothing. It was watching them get excited about autumn leaves and hot chocolate and the way snow falls at night. It was 1,000 tiny moments that added up to one big realization: I was in love with my best friend. The world seemed to stop spinning. "Sarah," he started to look up, but I was already on my feet. "I have to go." "Wait, please. I can't. I can't do this." I backed away, nearly tripping over a root. "I can't be your practice audience for this." "Not when." "When what?" "When I've been in love with you since freshman year." The words burst out before I could stop them. "And I can't sit here and listen to you practice telling someone else that you love them, even if it's written beautifully, even if it's about all the things I thought were our special moments." "Sarah." "No, let me finish. I know you see me as your best friend. I know you trust me to help you with this. But I can't pretend anymore. I can't." "Sarah." He was standing now too, still holding the notebook. "Will you please look at the dedication page?" "What?" "The first page. Look at it." With shaking hands, I took the notebook. On the first page, in Ryan's familiar handwriting, was a single line. "For Sarah Mitchell, who inspires every word." "I don't understand," I whispered. "All those practice sessions. I was trying to work up the courage to tell you. The real you, not the practice version. But every time I started, I got scared. Because you're not just some girl I like, you're my best friend. The person who knows all my favorite books and laughs at my worst jokes and makes every day better just by being in it. But, why ask me to practice?" He ran a hand through his hair, laughing nervously. "Because I'm an idiot. Because I thought if I could say it to you as practice, I'd finally find the right words. Because every time I try to tell you how I feel, I get lost in your eyes and forget how to speak." "That was terrible," I said, but I was smiling. "I know. I should probably stick to writing it down." He stepped closer. "Sarah Mitchell, I am completely, utterly, ardently in love with you." "You pronounced ardently wrong again." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did. It's." He kissed me. Time seemed to stop under that oak tree, with autumn leaves falling around us and the sounds of distant school life fading away. It was perfect. It was. Finally. We broke apart to find Mia standing there, phone in hand, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. "Tell me you didn't," I groaned. "Oh, I did. This is going in the wedding video." She waved her phone triumphantly. "Also, you're both idiots. Adorable idiots, but still." Ryan laughed, pulling me closer. "You knew." "Everyone knew," Mia said. "Well, everyone except Sarah. Even Mrs. Hayes figured it out when she read your creative writing piece." "Mrs. Hayes read it? Why do you think she kept pairing you two up for projects?" Mia rolled her eyes. Anyway, carry on with your romantic moment. I got what I needed for posterity. As she walked away, Ryan turned back to me. So, was that better than practice? I pretended to think about it. I don't know. Maybe we should try again. You know, for practice. His smile was brighter than any autumn sunshine. As you wish. This time, when he kissed me, there were no interruptions. Just the rustle of leaves, the warmth of the sun, and the feeling that every word in his notebook had been leading to this perfect moment. Though I was definitely going to have to work with him on pronouncing ardently correctly. Dating your best friend is like reading your favorite book for the first time again, familiar but somehow entirely new, with surprises hidden in the details you thought you knew by heart. You're staring, Ryan whispered during AP English, a week after the oak tree confession. Just admiring your terrible pronunciation of forthwith, I whispered back, making him grin. Mrs. Hayes cleared her throat. If Mr. Cooper and Ms. Mitchell could pause their literary flirtation for a moment, we're discussing the concept of dramatic irony. The class snickered. I felt my face heat up, but Ryan just smiled and said, "Sorry, Mrs. Hayes. We were just practicing some dramatic irony of our own, you know, where everyone knew we were in love except us." Smooth, Mr. Cooper. But perhaps save the romance for after class. I sank lower in my seat, but couldn't help smiling when Ryan's hand found mine under the desk. This was new too, the casual touches, the constant awareness of each other, the way every shared joke felt more special. But not everyone found our transition from friends to couple as charming as Mrs. Hayes did. So, Jessica cornered me at my locker after class. "You and Ryan, huh? That's convenient." "What do you mean?" "Just that you spent 3 years being his best friend and now suddenly you're dating." Her air quotes around best friend made my stomach clench. Some might call that playing the long game. Before I could respond, Mia appeared. Some might call your sudden interest in their relationship jealousy, Jessica. Weren't you just telling everyone last week that Ryan was definitely going to ask you out soon? Jessica's face reddened. Whatever. Just remember, Sarah, best friends make better practice partners than boyfriends. She stalked off, her words leaving an uncomfortable echo. Ignore her, Mia said, but I was already spiraling. What if Jessica was right? What if this was just an extension of our friendship, a comfortable choice rather than real love? What if Ryan realized he'd rather have someone who didn't correct his pronunciation or make terrible literary puns or birth to Sarah? Ryan's voice broke through my thoughts. He was standing where Jessica had been, holding 2 coffee cups. "You okay? You look like you're contemplating the tragic end of a Victorian novel. Do you think we rushed into this?" His smile faded. "Where's this coming from?" Jessica said. "Ah." He set down the coffees and took my hands. "Let me guess, she implied you were a backup choice. That we're just playing at dating?" I nodded miserably. "Well then," he pulled out his notebook, the same one that had started everything. "Let me read you something I wrote yesterday." Ryan. Chapter 37 of Reasons I Love Sarah Mitchell. Yes, I'm keeping count. Today she corrected my pronunciation of melancholy in front of the entire class, then spent 10 minutes explaining why it's her favorite word. Not because of its meaning, but because of how it feels to say it properly. Who else would find beauty in the mechanics of words? Who else would make me want to pronounce things wrong just to hear her explain them right? "You're ridiculous," I said, but I was smiling. I'm ridiculously in love with my best friend. And unlike some people, I don't see that as a downgrade from regular dating. I see it as hitting the jackpot. Even when I make you practice Shakespeare soliloquies. Especially then. Though I still think Hamlet was just being dramatic. He was talking to a skull. See? This is why I love you. Who else would defend Hamlet's emotional stability with such passion? The words hung in the air between us. We hadn't said, "I love you," out loud yet, not counting the confession under the tree, which had been read from the notebook. "You love me?" I asked softly. Was that not obvious from the 37 chapters of reasons why? "I want to hear you say it." Without reading it. He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. "Sarah Mitchell, I love you. Your grammar corrections, your literary references, your ability to quote entire passages of Jane Austen when you're nervous." "I love you too," I interrupted, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. "Get a room," Mia shouted as she passed by. "Preferably one without an audience of freshmen." We broke apart to find that yes, a group of ninth graders had gathered to watch the scene unfold. Ryan took a theatrical bow. "That, kids, is how you turn dramatic irony into a happy ending." "You're such a nerd," I laughed. "You're nerd. It's in writing, remember?" He tapped his notebook. "Speaking of which, would you want to maybe write something together? For the school literary magazine?" "Like what?" "A love story. About two best friends who take the longest possible route to finding each other. Only if we can include a scene where one of them terribly mispronounces ardently multiple times." "Deal. But I get to write the part where the other one finally realizes all those practice sessions were real confessions in disguise." As we walked to our next class, hands intertwined, I realized something: Jessica was wrong. Being best friends first hadn't made our love story less special, it had made it better. Because we already knew all the little things, the daily details, the quirks and flaws. We just got to love them in a new way now. But then Ryan tried to pronounce melancholy again, and I had to stop in the middle of the hallway to correct him. Some things never change. And honestly, I wouldn't want them to. The school literary magazine launch party was held in the library on a snowy December evening, 6 weeks after Ryan and I started dating. Our story, Practice Makes Perfect, had made the cover, though we changed the names to protect the guilty parties, mostly Mia, who featured prominently as our meddling best friend. "I still can't believe you actually submitted that," Mia said, flipping through her copy. "It's like reading my own director's commentary of your love story." Speaking of commentary, Ryan appeared with 3 hot chocolates, extra marshmallows. "Wait until you see what's in the special edition." "The what?" I asked, but he was already pulling something from his backpack, a leather-bound notebook, but not his usual one. "I had it made," he explained, handing it to me. "A proper copy of all those practice confessions and random thoughts. Complete with annotations." I opened it to find not just his original writings, but notes in the margins, my corrections of his pronunciation, Mia's running commentary she'd apparently been texting him, even Mrs. Hayes's thoughts from when she'd read his creative writing piece. "Turn to the back," he urged. The final page held a new entry, dated today. "Dear Sarah. Remember when you said real love stories don't need practice? You were wrong. Every day with you is practicing being better, loving deeper, pronouncing words correctly, though I still maintain ardently is open to interpretation. We're about to graduate in 6 months, heading to different colleges, though thank God Columbia and NYU are only a subway ride apart, and everyone keeps asking if we're worried about the future. But here's what I know. Some love stories are written in grand gestures and dramatic moments. Ours is written in coffee orders memorized, in books shared and discussed, in terrible puns and grammar corrections. It's written in the margins of notebooks and the spaces between words. And I plan to keep practicing, keep writing our story, keep loving you in all the small ways that add up to something huge. P.S. Check under the front cover." With trembling fingers, I lifted the front cover to find an envelope. Inside was a key on a small chain. "It's to my dorm room next year," Ryan said softly. "Well, technically it's a symbolic key since we don't get actual keys until August, but I wanted you to know that wherever I am, you'll always have a place. A place where you can correct my pronunciation and fill the margins with your thoughts." You're such a writer, I managed through tears, making him laugh. Your writer. And your practice partner. And your best friend. And hopefully your forever. Forever's a pretty big commitment, I teased, even as I slipped the key around my neck. Good thing we've had lots of practice. The library erupted in applause. Our friends had gathered around without us noticing, led by Mia, who was obviously filming the whole thing. For the wedding video, she called out. Though you might want to edit out Jessica's face in the background. She looks like she's sucking a lemon. Sure enough, Jessica was watching from the stacks, but her usual scowl had been replaced by something softer. When she caught me looking, she gave a small nod before disappearing behind the shelves. You know, Mia said, scrolling through her phone, I have videos of every major moment of your relationship. The tree confession, the hallway love declaration, the literary magazine announcement. We could make a documentary, How to Practice Falling in Love. Or, Ryan suggested, pulling me closer, we could just keep living it. No practice needed. I don't know, I smiled up at him. I kind of like practicing with you. Even when I mispronounce things. Especially when you mispronounce things. It gives me an excuse to keep correcting you forever. Forever, he repeated, getting it perfectly right this time. Later that night, as we sat under our oak tree despite the snow, I read through his notebook annotations. Each memory, each moment, each tiny detail that had led us here, all preserved in ink and margin notes and coffee stains. You know what this reminds me of? I asked, showing him a particularly coffee-damaged page. What's that? That quote from your beloved Shakespeare, the course of true love never did run smooth. First of all, you're the Shakespeare fan, not me. And second, he grinned, I think our course ran exactly as it should have. Every practice session, every missed signal, every mispronounced word led us right where we needed to be. Looking at him in the snow-softened darkness, I knew he was right. Some love stories need grand gestures and perfect timing. Ours needed practice sessions and notebooks and best friends who became something more. Ready to practice forever, he asked, pulling me to my feet. With you? Always. I brushed snow from his hair. Though we should probably start by practicing proper winter weather safety. You're saying, hypothermia, all wrong. His laugh echoed across the empty school grounds as he pulled me in for a kiss, and I knew this was one performance we'd never stop perfecting. After all, the best stories are the ones that keep being written, one practice session at a time.